Okay, so this is the raw data that I have pulled from Property Radar, but would be fine to use Agent Pro 24/7 or RealQuest Pro. It doesn't really matter. But I put in here, whenever I pull this data, specifically looking for sales comps, I will put in a tab for search criteria so that I can keep track of how I pulled this, and next time I can make changes or just kind of keep track of things, and hopefully someday somebody else can be doing this for me. So a couple things to point out when pulling specifically a new county, looking by subdivision to try to find sales data or essentially comps for pricing to send out blind offers. Of course, you have the typical things, the county that you want, the type of property, and then I usually put some zeros in for bedrooms, and square feet to try to rule out something other than just vacant land. Whatever you want when you're looking at a minimum lot size, depending on what you're thinking would be appropriate. Owner occupied, again, just to try to rule out anything other than vacant land. And then transfer date. So in this case, the county that I was pulling has so much data that I had to kind of narrow in a little bit. Other counties, I'll go back a year, maybe 2 years at the most, but about a year is what I shoot for. But again, this was just so much data that I didn't want to spend so much money on it or use up so many of my pulls. So I went back 10 months. And then another note that I didn't do at first, but I do now is, in this case, because this is kind of an urban area, I'll put a maximum purchase amount, and believe it or not, this actually excluded like 1,000 results, but a minimum purchase amount. So I just put something in there above zero, basically, so that you don't get the the quick claim interfamily transfers that don't derive information. You don't get any information from that. So that's the type of search criteria I'm looking at when I'm pulling for sales comps in a county. Again, it comes across like this from Property Radar. And what I will do, but again, this is just how I do it. I'll take this whole thing so that I leave the raw data intact if I ever wanted to come back to reference it for any reason. And I'll create a third tab, which I call Subdivision Analysis, where I really get into the nitty gritty. Don't mind my computer. It's like a 7-year-old laptop, so it's a little slow. Okay. So then I'll dump all this over here. And also something I've started doing recently is to try to systemize things a little bit. I've made notes for myself, and I'd be happy to share these notes if this is maybe like a jumping off point or something that you would like to use for any reason. So basically, I'm at this step right here already, which tells me which columns that I think are important to keep to do this analysis. So the only thing I need to keep here, I know what county I'm working in. This is unusually slow, sorry. So I'm going to be keeping the APN, and you'll see as I go through. But the reason I keep the APN is you can kind of see some like the APN scheme or the grouping of the numbers, which kind of helps a little bit. The subdivision name, of course, and the lot size, transfer date, and transfer amount. I paused because I was just thinking about how subdivision, something I need to put in my notes here, is to get rid of any results that don't have a subdivision. And okay, so we'll come back and do that. So I need to delete these. Okay, that's moving a little bit quicker. I actually don't care about any of this information right now. The next thing that I care about is the lot size. But I feel comfortable kind of chopping this up because I actually saved a version of it. Let's see. Transfer date. I like to have that. Transfer amount. Okay. So let me just double check that I have. Okay, so APN, subdivision, lot size, transfer date, transfer amount. Okay. And then I'm going to be looking to create some columns. But first, you could probably work with the APN schemes on this, especially in some of the more like rural areas, to get out like the blanks. So like this is probably like the very like out there properties that don't even have a subdivision. But I'm actually not going to worry about those for now, and I'm just going to take them out. So let me figure out how far. Okay. Okay. Oops. Actually, don't know if this is going to work because this is filtered or not. We'll see. Okay. Delete row. Okay, cool. So now we only have the results that have a subdivision. And then what I like to do is add a column for the acres and then the price per acre. And then I will simply, fill this in. All right. So there's the transfer amount. Okay. And then just kind of clean this up a little bit to make it a little easier to work with. Okay. And then actually let's oops. Okay. Make sure this went all the way down, and it did. Okay, great. All right, so we have 1,500 results for the last 10 months. We have the actual sales of the subdivision, the APN, the size they were, the price per acre, and the date they were transferred, and of course the transfer amount. So what I will do next is sort these by subdivision, A to Z, add a second, and do price per acre. For some reason, I just like looking largest to smallest. I don't know why. It's just like a preference thing. These are probably not going to give us any information we need. Same with like this. These are random ones. It doesn't really matter. You can always get this out later. But okay. And then to make it a little easier to look at, I will actually come up here to Tools. This is, I think, Excel 2010 for Mac. And come up here to Data and subtotal these. And at each change in subdivision, I will look at the average price per acre. And then I like to add a little page break between groups. And it'll subtotal these out for you a little bit to just make the data a little bit easier to see. This is being slow. Normally this runs relatively quickly. And then, sorry. I guess we can go over here and check our notes, make sure we're okay. We did that. Sorted, subtotal, page break between each subdivision. Okay, and I think this worked. Okay, and so then I actually will collapse these all down. And even though it's onerous, I will go through and I will look at them one by one, see how many we have. So, for example, this was the last 10 months, and there's only been 2 sales in the subdivision. So, at this point, it's kind of a judgment call. You go through and decide, whether or not more sales indicate something to you, like desirability of that subdivision. It just depends. Everything is really kind of an art, I think, when it comes to these comp models. But at least what this provides me now is all of the listed subdivisions in a county with a sale in the last 10 months per the county records, the price per acre by subdivision, and then along the side here, you can kind of see So let's say there was a big variation in a larger sample size here. This one's not. It's pretty tight. So I feel like this group in this subdivision is probably not like a sprawling subdivision. It's probably an info lot with lots that are side by side. So that gives me a pretty good feel, and they're all very similarly sized. There's a big variation here, which is interesting. So I'd probably take a look at that. I'll also take a look at the transfer date, and if these are all like 8/22, then I know it was probably some developer came in and bought all the lots up. But if it's kind of variant like this one, I'm probably not going to be. I mean, I don't know. I'll take a look at it, but what I'd like to see personally is something closer to this, with maybe something that's been selling every month or something like that. And then also these transfer amounts are, like I said, pretty variable, which is also interesting. So I'll take a look and see if maybe I can find some pattern between who bought something at somewhere around this price versus something around this price. And so this is just kind of a precursor look. And then from here, once I have this information, and I'll actually go through and like, nope, I do not want a mill. I'm not interested in that subdivision. That one I actually do want to take a look at. This can take forever if you have a county with a lot of subdivisions, like this one that I actually just pulled and was working on today. I probably went through this list in about 4 hours, each subdivision, and decided which ones I want to take a closer look at. From here, I'll pull them by subdivision, so I'll put in the criteria that I want to mail to, and then I will just add in this subdivision and only pull that subdivision. And then sometimes there's addresses. If not, at that point, I will work on what I think would be a reasonable price to offer by subdivision. So it's kind of a lengthier process, but I think that, comps are difficult. So this has been one of the ways that I've started the process off that I think is the most logical. I think that's pretty much everything that we had talked about in that post.